Hey listener, thanks for joining us today. You're listening to Pixels and Panels, a show where we take you behind the scenes of the comic industry through conversations with your favorite creators and industry leaders. Horror comic fans, we have a special treat for you today. We're joined by Garth and Kanan, the duo behind Witch Creek Road, which is one of the most popular original series on Webtoons. We talk today about working effectively as a writer and artist combo, learn about what kind of support you can expect as a Webtoon Originals creator, and even get some advice on how to become one. Here's Garth and Kanan. Hope you enjoy.
Hey, Kanan and Garth, how are you two doing today?
Hello.
Uh, I'm good. It's a stat holiday in Canada, so I've got the day off.
Wonderful. And we're very, very glad to have both of you here. So let's dive right in. To start, why don't you both give us a little bit of your background? So, Garth, maybe you could go first.
So my name's Garth. I write Witch Creek Road. I'm obsessed with horror comic books and movies, and that's basically where I got my passion and inspiration to write Witch Creek Road.
Well, I'm a freelance comic book artist. I'm coming from Bosnia, exactly city of Zenica. Well, I've been doing this for, I don't know, maybe more than 10 years, but professionally, I've been doing it the last more than 5 years. I've known Garth for, I don't know, maybe 7 years since we started working together. And I don't know, I that's what I do. I draw comics for a living.
And how did you two meet and form this super team?
So I used to haunt the DeviantArt like job forums because I knew that I can't draw. Like if I drew the stuff, no one would read it because it would be really, really bad. So I would kind of like watch for people looking for artists and see what kind of budgets they had. And if it kind of like fell into the budget that I had, I would look to see who was responding. And Keenan happened to respond to one of the like postings that I was looking at, and his art was amazing. I don't know if the person who had done the original post actually contacted him, but I reached out and I was like, I want to work with you.
And first of all, you know that Garth is really keyed into horror comics when he says I haunted DeviantArt. So I appreciate your commitment to the genre. I mean, Kanan, for you, I mean, here you are being approached to do a horror comic. Was that something? Was that a genre that you thought about drawing for? I'd love to just understand what that process was like for you when you heard about the opportunity.
Yeah, no, never. I never thought I would draw horror comics. To be honest, I never read horror comics. I was never a horror fan before that. I only ever watched anime. I watched cartoons. I read, superhero comics, the ones I could get my hands on here in Bosnia, which is very few. I had a couple of Spider-Man comics which I read over and over again, and that was kind of my how you say image of what comic books are. It was very a narrow view. But then when the guard approached me, yeah, I jumped on the opportunity, to do something new. And after a while, I self became a horror fan, and now today I can't even imagine. I do a lot of things because as a freelancer, you take what you get, but something about Beach Creek Road that turned me to the dark side. I'm a real horror fan now, and I hopefully I will get to work with Garth and on horror for many years to come.
It's amazing to hear that you didn't have much experience with horror because you pretty effortlessly have creeped and scared me with your drawing. So well done. I do want to ask about your art style, but before that, Garth, what inspired you to write and create Witch Creek Road?
So years ago, I used to live in Japan, and there were weekends where I would have nothing to do, and I would just like rent all these sometimes bad American horror movies from like the local video store and just eat cheap pizza and watch bad horror movies. And it kind of came from like those occasional weekends where I just movie binged, where I would watch a movie and think like, oh, I wish they'd done it this way. And so like looking at how I wanted things to go, that's where I started to think about Witch Creek Road and the things that I wished had happened but didn't.
Interesting. And what gravitated you towards the horror genre to begin with?
I don't know. I just enjoy like I enjoy the different genres within horror. Like I'm not so much on like torture porn. Like I don't really care about movies like that, but the masked killer, the monster kind of like movies and I don't know, it's just a guilty pleasure. It's like some people like romance and I like watching people get killed.
So when you approached Kanan for the first time, how much of the story did you have done for Witch Creek Road?
Oh, very little. I mean, I had the beginning and the middle and the end, but there were big kind of like open holes in it. And so when Kanan started drawing it, I was still in the process of writing it, but at that time we weren't doing it full time. So there was definitely time for me to like sit back and think about the story and write it as he was working at the beginning, which was already done.
So Kanan, what was character development like for you? Here you had a script and a skeleton of what things would evolve like. How would you take that story and then start to adapt your own creative interpretation of it?
Well, Gart is the one who provided the inspiration, provided the story. I just went off of his script, and I don't know. We just clicked when I read every page of the script. I kind of could imagine it in my head. I could imagine the characters. I could see how it all plays out, and I don't know. It just worked from day one when we started working together. I think we were on the same level, and I don't know. The character development was also done but in the process, in the process of drawing, I designed those characters, of course, with the guard's approval, and it worked great.
And how was it for you to adapt your existing style over to horror? What did you look at, or what was your process to make that happen?
Yeah, well, I didn't do any adjustment of my style or anything because the guard found me and my work on DeviantArt, and I think he liked it because he contacted me, and so I just I don't know. I took my style. I say I didn't have today even I don't kind of think I have a style. I just take the things that I like from many other artists, and I try to make something that I like, and whatever comes out, it's you can call it my style. But I think it just worked, my style I had back then worked with blood and gore. It looked like how do you say, like a standard comic book art, maybe some manga in it, and then when it gets brutal, it kind of I don't know, it has that contrast, and I think maybe that's because that's how it worked, and so I didn't have to do anything special. I just read the script and draw it. Gart was very helpful and open. He gave me all the freedom to do whatever I think is best. And I don't know, I just enjoy working with Gart, and I think that shows in the comic.
So I'd love to give our listener a sense of what it it's like for a team to work together to produce this. So when I think about the most iconic characters in this series, it's the three demons that you meet in the beginning. So maybe let's start with how you all brought them to life. So Garth, what did you come with at first when you were like, okay, here are the three, sort of main characters that you will be seeing in this series?
I think I only described them as like sexy and then with something wrong. Like I said, like maybe there's something wrong with their eyes, or maybe they've got like there's something about them. And I think I described them as kind of like sharks on land, like in that sense of like they are predators. They are out there and they only want to like hunt and to kill. And so what Keenan produced was really just like it wasn't a lot of direction for me. And what he did was it just knocked it out of the park. Like those demons are amazing and so many people just love them.
Yeah, and as you talk about those themes, Garth, I can definitely see them as they came to life. Kanan, what was that process like for you? Here you've gotten a vague but directional way to think about what these demons look like. How much iteration was there? Where did you draw inspiration from? How was it to go from that to like, okay, here are these three characters that everyone loves?
Yeah, exactly as Gar said, the word sharks, that's what led me. They are just killing machines, cold, uh, you know, without emotions. They just need blood, and that's it. And first thing I thought about when thinking about sharks is those cold, dead black eyes.
Mm.
That's the first thing I almost immediately thought of. And the rest, sexy, leather, tight, and I don't know, it fell apart, fell in place. I'm glad people like.
And how did you both think about the audience of who this story was for? Maybe Garth, you can answer that one.
Yeah, if I'm being completely honest, I was not concerned about audience. Like I was writing what I wanted to read. And so I was like, if an audience finds this great, they're people who I would like sit down and have a coffee with and probably get along really well with. But I I'm a strong believer that you should write what you enjoy. And instead of like trying to write for someone else, write for yourself. And your audience will find you is like if you do it well, like Keenan's artwork is amazing. It helps people like look at it and think this is awesome. So then it's just a matter of making sure that the story is decent too. And yeah, if you just do what you like and write for yourself, then ideally you'll find an audience.
Interesting. And I'd love to dive into what the process looked like on a weekly basis. So in an average week when you are producing this, what do things look like? My guess is the script is mostly done and Kanan, it's a lot of you working, but I'd love to hear what the process sort of looks like, maybe end to end.
Okay. So like Kenan would have the script and I would send him like scene by scene. So he'd usually have about 5, 6, up to 10 pages to work with at a time. And as he would send me pages, then I would send those to the colorist and I would letter the black and white. And then once the colorist got the pages back to me, then I would cut them up into the Webtoons format because everything that we do is sequential format for traditional comic books. Because the ultimate goal was to print it. And so, yeah, once I would get it back from the colorist, I'd cut it up and then transfer the letters from the black and white pages that Keenan had sent originally, put those over, and then send those off to the editor for approval.
And Kanan, what was it like for you?
Well, as an artist, my only job was to take all that hard work God put into the script and everything else and just draw. As I said before, God gave me a lot of freedom, a lot of creative freedom. I could really do whatever I want. I could add panels, take panels out, whatever. So that's mainly it. And I have to say, as much as Garth says my work is awesome, and thank you very much for that. His writing is even more awesome, and if you have a really good story, any art can look great. You know, a good story makes or breaks a comic or anything else for that matter, a movie or etc.
And a lot of the creators we've talked to have been one-man bands, for lack of a better term. They've been doing the story, the drawing, the lettering, the promotion. They've been doing everything on their own end to end. So what has it been like to work together as a team? Maybe Kanan, you can go first.
I don't know. It was great. As I said before, I really clicked with Garth, and for 6-7 years we've been working together within non-stop. And when you work with someone that long, you can. He's a really great guy. I really can't say enough good things about him. Even we never spoke live. This is actually the first time we see each other in real time and
Yeah.
speak. We communicate through email. But I just have to say, when you have to work with someone, I hope you get someone like Garth.
Wait, Kanan, if you don't mind me asking, so this is the first time you guys have spoken to each other, is that right?
Yeah. Aside from like email and chats.
So you've created this webtoon purely through chat, which is just incredible.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow. Credit to both of you. That's super cool.
Thank you for the opportunity to, to be honest, we could have maybe organized some sort of a video meeting between us two, but I think both of us are leaning towards the introvert.
Yeah.
So we rather stay in the mail.
Yeah, we made it work with email. It's been good.
It's so cool. And Garth and Kenan, what advice would you have to an aspiring comic creator that's looking for a partner to help complement their skills? I'm sure both of you approached it slightly differently, but Garth, what did you feel was important to you when you looked for a partnership?
So Keenan is definitely not the first artist I've worked with. Definitely my favorite. And so that's why, like, even though we're kind of like done with Witchery Code, I'm just hanging on to him as much as I can because I don't want to stop working with them. But essentially, you need someone who kind of understands both people need a partner who understands their kind of like vision. Even if it's the artist kind of adapting the story, the art still needs to complement the story, and you need to kind of understand where each other are coming from. Because even if the artist doesn't completely complement the story, then it's the writer's job to kind of give the artist something that will complement the style. So you need to kind of find that middle ground. And I was just really lucky with Keenan. His art was amazing. The stuff that I would give to him, I would get back pages that were either as good or better than what I was picturing in my head. And so I knew really early on that Keenan was the one for Witch Creek. And at that time, initially, Witch Creek Road wasn't even the main project I was working on. But as soon as I started working with Keenan and getting those pages, it became the main project. Like, that's what I wanted to be doing. So yeah, I guess the main thing is look for someone who complements you and someone who kind of understands where you're coming from.
Kenan, was it similar for you, or were there other things that you were looking for as well as an artist?
Oh, well, at that time, I really wasn't looking for a specific person to work with. I was just looking for something to work on. And I was lucky enough to find a person. And yeah, I would just agree with Garth, we got to find someone who is, you can, how do you say, relate on a human level first. When you can communicate with someone easily, effortlessly, then there's no problem you can't solve together. You can't work around it. So yeah, you just have to find this, a person who is, open to uh, how do you say, open to changes, open to ideas, and just overall a good person, and everything is easier.
So creating physical copies, Garth, you mentioned that the ultimate goal was to print. Do you mind sharing a little bit about why physical printing was so important to you as part of this project?
So initially, we never even thought about it being a webcomic. We started off, we did Kickstarters for issue 1 and issue 2. And the problem for me was that I had published a graphic novel about a year before and went through Diamond. You could order it into comic stores, stuff like that. But the problem is when no one knows who you are, no one orders a comic from somebody who they don't know, and it's hard to get in front of an audience when no one knows who you are. And then with Witch Creek Road, I wanted to do the opposite and just try to get it in front of as many people as we could. So I started thinking about like, how do we do this? And that's what led me to, Webtoon, and we did Tapastic for a little bit too, but ended up focusing on Webtoon. I never even knew that featured and getting paid for it was a thing. I just wanted to get it in front of people and have people read it because I was proud of what we were doing and thought that it looked great.
So let's talk about the originals process. What did that look like? When were you contacted about, hey, maybe you would be a perfect fit for our originals program?
It was right in between issue 2 and issue 3, where I think we had started the art for issue 3, but we hadn't started posting it yet. And that's basically where they contacted us. So we'd been on Webtoon for about half a year at that point.
And Kanan, what was it like for you to work with the originals team? What sort of support did they give you?
They give us financial support. When we first started, there was much more involvement of the editor. I had some more obligations. We had to adjust the panels that were, as Garth said, in the classic comic book format to the Webtoon format. So I had to redraw some panels. I had to change some panels, maybe draw new panels that didn't exist in the classic format. We did it. So we kind of, did that for a while. But after some time, they left us, they gave us freedom to basically do whatever we wanted. We posted the pages as they were, only the panels would be cropped and everything. But yeah, that's mostly what I got from that, because Garth was the one who was mostly working with the editors with Webtoons directly. So I was mostly spared of communicating with them, but I did have those additional things to work on.
And Garth, what sort of things would you work with the editor on?
It was mostly about like the placement of the panels. And sometimes, like Keenan said, during season 1, there were a lot of situations where they wanted additional panels or the panels to be expanded. But after season 1, it wasn't so much the art. And so it was more just focused on making sure that the layout was okay, making sure that there weren't any grammatical errors and, spelling mistakes. By season 4, we were, there wasn't like a lot of updates or anything that we needed to do. A lot of times it was like, yep, that looks good. I guess the only times where they really had to step in a little bit was where sometimes some of the panels were too gory, so we had to tone down the blood a little bit, but that was pretty much it.
Good problem to have, too much blood.
Yeah.
And at that point, how much of the story did you have done?
Once we got into Webtoons, I had to stay ahead, just because there was our schedules were so tight that we couldn't afford to have any downtime. So I was generally always at least an episode or two ahead of Keenan, just so that, he would always have something to do.
And Kanan, what was it like for you to be producing on this, tight, very regular deadline of, publishing weekly? What was that like as an artist?
Yeah, how to say, it was much. I couldn't keep up. I could keep up because we had some work that has been done in advance, and that I just couldn't keep up, and some guest artists had to, take over when I couldn't complete some of these issues in time. But yeah, I did just focus exclusively on Witch Creek Road at that time. I just drew Witch Creek Road, nothing else, and that did help with catching up on the deadline. But I did as much as I could at that time. But yeah, it was a strict schedule.
On your site, you talked a little bit about what it was like to work with Webtoon on the story. And as always with the creative process, it doesn't mean you're going to agree all the time. So Garth, do you mind expanding on that a little bit?
Yeah, so Witch Creek Road was only intended to be one season. Like it should have been called something different. So if I could have gone back in time, I would have named it something different. And season 1 would have been Witch Creek Road, season 2 would have been Skinned, season 3 would have been like Infested, which was the Edwin story. And kind of like what they do in American Horror Story, where every season is completely different, completely unique story. And then eventually with Witch Creek Road, it would have started coming together and overlapping in future seasons. But the problem was being called Witch Creek Road and continuing with the seasons which weren't intended to be completely connected to it. We had to end up connecting, season 1 to season 2 and 3. So what ended up happening was the Skinned storyline in season 2, we inserted some characters from season 1 that originally hadn't been there. And it caused some changes, like the ending of the Skinned storyline ended up being different, which didn't affect things too much at the time. But then as you progress even further, there was stuff in season 4 that was a lot different than what I had originally wanted, just because what had been changed in season 2 was causing kind of a ripple effect. And I completely understand it. Like they were paying us money to produce this series, and I mean, Keenan and I were both very happy for the extra income. And I get them wanting to have familiar characters in there. Like I didn't fight them too much on it because I understood from a business aspect that they want familiar characters that people recognize.
Is it safe to say that they thought if you kept the same characters throughout, it would just bring people back a bit more easily, even though you may have had more of an anthology feel to it? Is that the right way to think about it?
Yeah, I think they just wanted people to see something that they recognized, and something that they already knew from season 1.
And what surprised each of you about being on the originals team? What was the most surprising thing to either of you?
Yeah, I was very impressed with how supportive and how good they are. Like they do take very good care of their creators. They're very supportive. I've loved working for Webtoon. I would recommend it to people if they get the opportunity. Yeah, we managed to produce a lot more than we probably would have if it had been, because as a writer and commissioning artwork, like what I'm able to produce is determined by the money in my pocket. And it gets expensive being a writer who cannot draw. Webtoons provided, or they like refilled the coffers. You know, they made it so that I could continue and continue working with Keenan and producing a lot of stuff that would have been a lot harder to do otherwise.
Was the biggest thing that they gave you the sort of financial backing for you to pursue your vision?
Not just that, like that was valuable, but also the platform. Like once you become a featured creator, you get a lot of eyes on the material. So suddenly, instead of having, 18,000 subscribers on the originals, we had like 400,000. And yeah, it was amazing. Like we got our story out in front of so many people as a result. So that is, I don't know, like definitely the money is nice, but the extra marketing and the extra eyes on it is invaluable.
Makes a ton of sense to me. Kanan, what advice would you give to a young aspiring artist that wants to get to the level of being an originals artist?
Well, I can only recommend some the things I did. Most importantly, if you want to succeed in anything, at least that's what I think. If you want your work to be seen by somebody, you have to just focus on it. Be your worst critic. Always look to improve your work. Do not how to say, produce work for other people. Produce it for yourself. You have to be the one who is going to be satisfied with what you do. And after many years and much time working on your craft, then if your work is good enough, it will eventually, I think, lead to something. I've been as I said, in drawing comic books for maybe 10 years, and I can't say I'm I succeeded in it. I mean, I am very happy that for the things I did so far, with the guard and with Webtoons. But I still keep on working on my art, and that's the most important thing to me. And I think every other artist should just focus to be happy with his own art and listen to the people around him. Ask them what they think about it, where should you improve, etc. And I think results will come.
Garth, any advice for someone who wants to be an originals creator?
It's mainly like if you can write and draw, perfect. Like that is the perfect situation. But just in general, do what you enjoy. Don't try to produce something for a particular audience. Just do what you enjoy, because that way you'll have fun doing it. The hard thing with Webtoons is that there's so many people producing that it can be really hard to find that audience in the beginning. So if you're producing for someone else and expecting to find that audience by writing for them and it doesn't happen, then you're not going to enjoy it because you're doing it for someone else. So instead, do it for yourself and try to find your audience that way. And also patience. Like it's not going to happen overnight. It is definitely going to take time. So don't give up. Just keep trying.
I'd love to get both of your thoughts on the future of the industry a little bit. So, as you may have seen, All of Us Are Dead, a big webtoon. It's not the newest Webtoon. I believe it's five plus years old. It is now a Netflix series that is trending, popular. It's getting a second wind. What are your thoughts on, more comic IP becoming a big part about what people consume and how this affects creators like both of you?
So my opinion on that is that Hollywood is scared to take chances on new items. There's so many sequels, so many remakes. Getting something truly original is becoming less and less. So comics are really good because they've already proven their concept. If something's popular, it's popular for a reason. And so comics are kind of like the current gold mine in terms of ideas, not just superheroes, but everything. There are a lot of comic book intellectual properties being made into, movies, TV shows, games, things like that.
Kanan?
Yeah, I would like to say about the web comics in general, how important it is, and how what that means to people like me who don't live in the USA and or anywhere where you can kind of get into the industry. For me personally, the technology and the internet was meant everything. I wouldn't be able to do what I do today if it weren't for the internet. And web comics, they just get get the comics closer to the people from all over the world, and it makes it easier to get into the business. Before, there was the gatekeepers, the editors, the big publishers, where if you wanted to work in comics, you had to go to them. But now I think I love the changes that are going to in comics in general, and especially in web comics, where everybody is producing their own content. Everybody has a place of their own, and people can choose, what they like, they read what they like, what they don't like, they don't read, and only the best, rise up. I'm glad for also the webtoons that are becoming the series. I keep that in my sight. I hopefully Netflix will be recording a show, Witch Creek Road.
Yeah.
So I think overall it's very good for webcomics, for everything. Comics are becoming a testing ground for movies, especially for shows. As Garth said, it's cheaper to fail in comics than to invest all that money in a show or a movie and then to get it failed. But so thumbs up. I think the best things are before us.
Kanan, you touched on how the internet has just drastically changed your life, right? 60 years ago, if you wanted to get into comics, you needed to be sitting with a publisher physically. Now things have changed and you can form a super team from two very different places. Kanan, maybe you can start on this question, but what do you hope to see in the future of the comic industry?
Well, as I said, I really like what's going on now, but I would like to see more of this, more of a opening up to everybody. If you got a story, if you got some art, you can get together, make a comic book, and I think the most important thing for comic book creators in general is readers. You want people to see what you've been working on. You want people to be able to read your comics, and in the future, so as much as that could be increased, that would be great. So make people's work visible to as many people as possible. Make more opportunities for people that otherwise couldn't be in the comic book industry, and just overall make people create more, people read more, and we're all gonna be better off. I think.
Garth, how about you?
So Keenan said that all really well. I think the only thing I can add to that is, like, before the comic publishers kind of dictated the comics that existed, you know, they were the ones in charge of what we read and had access to. And now that's not the case anymore. Like, you can go to Kickstarter and kickstart a comic book about whatever. You can go to Webtoons and produce a comic about whatever you want. So as Keenan said, like, those gatekeepers aren't there anymore. And those subjects and the minority groups and everything like that, that they didn't really have much representation in comics before, they have that now. And it, like I said, like Keenan said, I just hope it gets better too. You know, we're definitely in the right direction. And as more people kind of lend their voice, then we'll get more of that. And, you know, in theory, the more we get, there's more is going to rise to the top.
One of the things I enjoyed about Witch Creek Road is, like you both alluded to, it's a very new type of story. It's very easy for a streaming platform or a movie studio to say, let's stick with characters or a story type that we know people know. It's the safest thing to do. And what I've enjoyed is it feels really different and creates a mix of emotions as a reader that I haven't really felt before. So credit to both of you for this work. It's been a lot of fun to read. I did want to close with our rapid fire round. So I have 5 questions. I'll admit they're a bit tricky. You're probably gonna have to think about them, but Kanan, you can go first, and then Garth, you can go after that. So my first question for you is, which fictional character best describes your personality?
Oh man, I don't know. I thought about that. You know, I think maybe because the other time I was thinking, I really like Venom. You know, as a character. Uh, I don't know why, but I always liked Venom from the first time I found out about him in the Spider-Man comics. I don't know if it's the suit that I love, the design of the character, or the symbolism, the duality of you know, the symbiote and Eddie. And I don't know. I feel like I have a personality that's kind of split, you know, between my how do you say, extroverted self and introverted self, and it kind of they switch they switch between, and I would say Venom, yeah.
Garth?
Yeah, I'm gonna cheat, and I'm gonna use a character from Witch Creek Road. Like, essentially in season 3, there we see like the origins of the old man, and what I wrote was very much how I feel. Like, he was going to a haunted hotel. He didn't believe in ghosts or anything like that, but he wanted to, and all he wanted to do was see some sort of affirmation that these things exist. And that's kind of like me. Like, I don't believe in ghosts, but I want them to exist. And if I could just see one, I would be happy. But at the same time, I know if I saw one, I would probably, like, overanalyze it into thinking it was something like a trick of my mind. So yeah, that's the old man from Witch Creek Road.
What 3 webtoons would you take with you on a desert island? Kanan?
Of course, Witch Creek Road. So I like the Webtoon Adventures of God on Webtoons. I keep reading that. It's really good. Also, I found let me see, the Trailer Park. Wait, just a second. Trailer Park Warlock. I think that's a great comic too. I didn't read much of Webtoons comics, but those are a few I found and kind of got lost in it.
And Garth, which three would you take with you on a desert island?
Yeah, Safely Endangered, and Sarah's Scribbles, and Unordinary.
Next, if you could pick any, which manga, webtoon, comic creator would you want to have dinner with? Maybe Kanan, you can go first.
Oh, I'd like to go to dinner with a lot of creators, a lot of artists. I have a lot of artists that I look up to and admire. I don't know. Maybe Mike Mignola is the first one to sit down with and pick his brain. Also, some other artists like Coipel, like Ryan Otley, Ben Stenbeck. Those are all great artists, and I would like to sit with all of them.
Garth?
Yeah, so I'll say three because it's really hard to narrow down to one.
Totally fair.
One is Joe Hill. If you're not familiar with Joe Hill, he's the one who did Lock and Key. He's got a new series out called Rain right now, which I'm really enjoying. He's Stephen King's son. So, I mean, like, you know, the guy's pretty cool. And the second one would be Neil Gaiman. Just the guy's a genius. And the third would be Junji Ito, who does amazing Japanese horror. And he writes and draws, like, he's the full package. The guy's amazing.
And then what's your favorite scene from any webtoon or comic that you have read? Kanan, you can go first.
Favorite scene? I don't know. I like the scene in Beach Creek Road when Sarah enters the cabin and turns around and says, "No, I'm going to eat you all." I like that.
Garth?
So mine also has to do with eating, but there was I don't remember the exact comic, but there was an alternate Marvel series where Magneto flipped the polar alignment or something, and it just wiped out so many people at the same time. But it caused some people, I think, to go crazy or something, because there's a scene where Ant-Man comes up and he's looking for the wasp, and he finds the wasp and she's being eaten by the blob. And it's just this really gruesome scene of like the blob, like mid eating of the wasp. And the Ant-Man grows like basically as big as he can. It picks up the blob and just bites his head off and spits it out. And yeah, that scene definitely like stuck with me.
And finally, if you could have dinner with one fictional character, who would it be? Kanan, you go first.
Rorschach from Watchmen. I like his character. I don't know. I think he's interesting. Hopefully, he wouldn't kill me on that dinner.
And Garth?
I guess like someone like Dr. Manhattan from, I mean, same series, like Watchmen, just because he seems to know so much. And as long as he was willing to answer questions truthfully, it would be really interesting to just be like, hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? And find out about all these different things, because he's so incredibly smart and knows everything.
Well, thank you so much for going through the rapid fire round. Kanan, Garth, thank you for taking some time to come on our show. Witch Creek Road is incredible. I describe it as delightfully creepy. All of our listeners, please go check it out. And they also have a website, witchcreekroad.com, that has some fun Q&As. You can purchase some of their incredible work and continue to support these two. So thank you so much for coming on, and we hope to chat with you again.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for joining us today. If you have any feedback or want to be featured as our next guest, please write to us at pixelsandpanelspod@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe,
like, or give us a 5-star rating. See you all next week.